Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, President, Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training. My special guest today is Erwin Yseijin, who is the president of Semikron Danfoss here in Japan. Erwin, welcome.
Welcome, Greg. Thank you for the opportunity.
What does your company do? People may not be aware of, the name of the company, the industry, and just a little bit of background on that first would be probably helpful for people.
Okay, so Semikron Danfoss, we are producing power semiconductor modules. So these modules are used in wind turbine application, solar application, energy storage application, and the classical motor drive application. So that's what we are doing. We are buying chips on the market, freely available, and we are packaging them into high power modules, which the customer can use then for power conversion application.
How long has the company been active in Japan?
We are active in Japan for more than 50 years. Yeah, so we already had three predecessors. So I'm basically the fourth generation. The fourth generation.
Fantastic. So let's also have a little bit of background on you. Company's well established in Japan. You're the fourth generation. How is it you came to be in Japan? Give us a bit of the background on your career.
Well, in 1989, quite some time ago, I was studying German in Brussels. So originally I'm from Belgium. But in the evening, I did not want to go back home. Actually, before going back home, I want to study something. So I studied German. And then because I became so excited about the language, the culture, that finally I applied also for a job in Germany. And coincidentally, that was a Japanese company. So that's the reason why in 1989 I moved to Munich and I started working for the company Hitachi Semiconductor, which is now Renesas. So this is quite some time ago. Exactly, this is 36 years ago.
So your original training was as an engineer, or what was your original?
Originally engineer.
Engineer.
So I was a hardware engineer for power application, switch mode power supply. I also got a little bit tempted into the software field. So I also programmed motor drive applications, small motor drive application. And that was the reason why actually Germany is more wider industrial base. And that's the reason why I moved to Germany and found a job for a Japanese company. And after I...
what was that like? I mean, this is a Japanese company in Europe. So run by German colleagues, or Japanese colleagues are there as well? Or?
There were obviously a lot of expatriated Japanese at that point in time, because 1990 was still the heyday of Japan, right? Booming. So there was a lot of money in that market. There were a lot of Japanese who had actually functions in Germany, and that it was then also the reason why I thought, why can't you do it the other way around? Why do you need to send the Japanese to Germany? Why don't we from Europe should go to Japan? And once I opened that idea to the Japanese management, actually they bought in. And I was one of the first expatriates who did not came from Japan to Europe, but the first European who went actually over to Japan, which was in 1992.
Right. 1992. Oh, I came back to Japan in 1992.
Yeah.
Actually, we got here. I was in Nagoya, but you're here in Tokyo. So what did they have you doing back in 1992?
In 1992, I was responsible for the European market and also for the power semiconductor arrangement of samples, logistics, customer meetings. So it was a kind of a very junior job. Although I learned a lot, particularly how Japanese companies are operating from the inside, right? So that basically I was involved in the daily activities, doing the planning of the production, giving the quotations to the customer, arranging the samples for customers in Europe. So that was quite a very interesting time in my career, also to learn not only the culture, but also a little bit about the language, right? So that was actually very interesting.
So the company they had in Europe, Japanese company in Europe, were they running that in a European fashion, do you think, or was more a Japanese style of management being applied in Germany at that time?
All our managers were actually European people, right? But Japanese had the kind of liaison office. So there were a lot of liaison engineers who actually would look into our operations, what we were doing. But I think there was a lot of appreciation for the European management. So it was not really forced to be a Japanese company. Right?
So when you got here, though, this is Japan, so they're running it the way they like it.
Right.
So when you first experienced the real Japanese management, what did you find? Is something you were quite surprised, or things you thought expected, or how did you react to that?
Well, I think from an organizational point of view, Japanese companies are known to have kind of a pyramid structure, right? So there would be many layers from junior management, mid-management, senior management, and maybe there are 4 or 5 layers. So that I found that it became increasingly difficult to understand what was the contribution of every of these layers. Where in Europe, we normally would have one manager, senior manager, and he would have 10 subordinates, right? Here you would have more a kind of a mix or a grow of the personalities through the organization. And that's the reason why there were so many intermediate layers where you had to deal with, which has its advantages. So that was one thing.
What's the advantage of all of these layers?
Well, I think first of all that when the manager gets a certain promotion, he takes up his experience to the next level. So actually for his decision making, it may help the understanding of the daily problems, because we should not forget a Japanese manager by his Japanese employees is expected to understand their problem, right? So you need a certain track record to grow through that organization, because otherwise you would not get the appreciation of your employees. I think that was one of the advantages. Of course, in terms of speed, and we know that all very well, it may not always help, right? So decision making is a little bit slower in that context. But okay, that we find our way. And I think what was very appreciated was, as a foreigner, of course, you were exposed through all these function and all these management layers, which gives you a valuable experience over the whole time. I spent my time in Japan with 4 companies and accumulated 15 years.
And also, I imagine your first experience of dealing with Japanese domestic customers as well, that must have been quite an eye-opening experience in terms of, well, I'm going to suggest how demanding they would be. But how did you think about that when you started to really deal with the clients, the buyers? What did you think about that?
I think you always have the foreigner bonus.
Okay.
So I think you are allowed to make certain mistakes. I think also your voice is maybe in this case where you are working for a German company or for an overseas company, I think your voice has much more value, right? Because it's the opinion of the company. You represent the company. I think where the risk is, it's always you need, when you reply, to have a very sanitized reply. It need to be well thought through, right? Because Japanese people are paying a lot of attention to the beauty of the detail, right? So when you don't pay attention to that, and you cannot argue, or you cannot underlay your reply, I think it will discredit you in the midterm.
And so how long did you spend with that company in Japan?
Well, in total, I spent 15 years.
With that one company?
With
the company
10
that you
years.
came with, so that
was
period
10
was
years.
10 years, right?
10 years.
So what happens at the end of 10 years? You go out of that company, you go back, you work in another company here?
I went back. Actually, with that company, I came 2 times.
Okay.
So I was 2 years in Germany, 2 years Japan, 2 years in Germany, and I was another 3 years in Japan. And as the second assignment with the same company, so I must not have done a very bad job the first time, because they allowed me to come back. So that was a good one.
You must have picked up some Japanese also over that first and second time as well, I guess. Your Japanese is probably getting better, I guess.
Right. So that was invaluable. That was really very good, because it seems in Japan that companies has their own Japanese language, how they would name their department. Right, the sales department, production planning department, finance department. So it seems you learn really a lot of insights and the terminology and what is really meant by saying this word, Japanese word. So incredible experience.
And so at the end of that last 3-year period, then what happens? You join another company?
I joined another company, and no, I went back to Germany, and in Germany within less than a year, actually, because I lost a lot of my good contacts with the Japanese hosting company, right? The mothership, let's call it like that. Yeah. And then I felt it became a little bit undervaluated, because I know all the people in Japan, all the engineers, all the R&D, production planning team, and that was not valuable anymore when I was doing my job in Europe, right? So that is the reason why actually I decided then to move to a German company and be expatriated to Japan, right?
Great.
So do it the other way around.
Yeah. And you found a job with another company. Which company was that?
Infineon.
Infineon, okay.
Infineon.
Oh, Infineon. Oh,
Yeah.
famous company, Infineon. Okay, great. We had Mori-san as the president. Was the first podcast in the series, actually, coming back 5 years now.
Right.
Wow, okay, small world. And so how long did you spend in Infineon?
I was also 10 years in Infineon. I spent 6 months in Germany. Then I came 4 years to Infineon here. And immediately after my assignment in Japan, I moved to Taiwan. So I was 5 years in Taiwan for Infineon. Because during the days in Japan, we could convince the management to do an acquisition in Taiwan. Right? So they acquired a company, and then they asked me also to do the post-merger integration. So I also spent 5 years in Taiwan doing the post-merger.
Mandarin as well?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Etienne.
Yeah. So, and then you, how did you get back to Japan from Taiwan? With Infineon, or you?
Actually, same scenario. After I was with Infineon in Taiwan, I had a very good experience managing R&D development, because we were doing chip design and a board implementation in Taiwan. Right, so we had a team of about 50 R&D engineers, which was extremely interesting, and I had a very close customer contact, because all the customers for data and IT, they are actually in Taiwan. Right, so there's a lot. 85% of the PCs are produced by Taiwanese companies. All the IT, think about router, wireless connectivity. This is all Taiwan dominated market, right? And that's the reason why I felt so sad going back to the headquarters in Germany, which is politically correct, which made the marketing challenge much more difficult, because I was too far away from the market and from our customer. Right? So that was then the reason why I decided to quit my job at Infineon, and I moved to a startup where we did gallium-nitride, next generation power semiconductors. So
that was there or here?
That was actually in Dresden in Germany.
Oh, Dresden, okay. Right,
and after that company was sold out, I decided to the company where I am now, Semikron.
Oh, okay. And so you joined them in Germany, or and then they sent you here?
And then, yes, I was originally responsible for the business development, and we did the reorganization of the whole Asia landscape, how we have the setup in Asia. So we closed some factories. Australia factory was closed, the Korea factory was closed, and therefore we moved that all to India during the Semikron days. So we changed a little bit of footprint, and we also set up a different sales channel strategy, which was direct sales for medium and large account, and which was distribution sales for these smaller accounts, which is working pretty fine at the moment.
And when they sent you back to Japan, they sent you back as the new president. Is that how it worked?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So you came as the president. So you arrive. You'd been in the company how long before they sent you to Japan?
4 years.
So you know the headquarters extremely well. You got the global contacts, especially APAC, very good. Japan president, with the quite a lot of experience over the years in Japan. So you arrive as a guy who knows what he's doing in Japan, speaks Japanese, I presume, by that time. Great. So coming out of the headquarters, that gives you a lot of authority here. Credibility here, but they don't know you, right? They've had a fourth president in Japan over 50 years, which is not a big turnover, right? When you think about it,
very
people
stable.
Stayed a long time,
very stable.
Right?
Yeah.
So your predecessor must have been here 10 years plus or something.
They all were about 10 years here. Yeah.
Right? So everyone's gotten used for 10 years. Everyone's gotten used to someone else.
Right.
And then the new guy turns up, right? Well, new guy in the sense of he's new face here for the Japan side. So what did you find worked well to get the Japan team here to engage, to follow you as the new leader? What things did you find worked well to get them to do that?
I think the best way to get recognition in Japan is get your hands dirty.
Okay.
Right. So
What did that mean in practical terms for you?
So in practical terms, that means when there are difficulties with a customer, you go together with your sales guy first. Right, and you try to understand the problem. You support your sales team, and you work out a solution which also has your buy-in and the headquarter buy-in. And I think that is what you said before, Greg. That is very important, that you can build an easy bridge with headquarters. Right. So because of my almost 30 years experience, I was always building bridges between headquarters and regions. I think this is very important because that makes the people in the field. They can work in a very smooth fashion. You understand the customer problem, you can explain it, you work on a solution, you give it back to them, they can communicate it, and the issue is settled. So get your hands dirty. I think this is very important.
And I think just on that point too, you made a reference there that you can speak on behalf of headquarters because you know headquarters well, and you can give a commitment that you know headquarters will honour. So you can solve problems on the spot, more or less, I guess, pretty much,
Right.
or pretty quickly, which is a big advantage in Japan, that you come in, you say, okay, we'll do this, and people know that's not going to get chopped down or cut back or countervailed by someone at headquarters. You speak for the company, and that brings a lot of authority to the decision-making chain in Japan. And so people recognize, Erwin is a powerful guy. He can make things happen with headquarters. And I think for Japanese staff, they really know that's very important for them, because for them to try and move headquarters for themselves, probably pretty impossible, pretty hard.
Right.
You're their guy with headquarters, so they would, I imagine, appreciate that.
I think that's perfectly right.
What are the things you do to get them engaged? Was there lots of drinking after work, or I don't know how they in those days, how you did things, but these days that's gone out the window. But used to be a function once upon a time.
Yeah, well, I think to get engaged with your people is to nurture their talent. No? Of course, all the Japanese employees which we have, they are also not all the same. No. Some have MBAs, some are more on the engineering side, and some people have a background which is very valuable to us. They are 100% commercial sales performers, right? I think how to find a level where when you can engage, you talk their language, you talk on their frequency. I have an engineering background, but I also did my MBA during my Infineon days. So that means you need to find the frequency, how to talk with your people. No? And I think then it is once Japanese members of our team, or Japanese in general, once they feel an appreciation, they also would come over the bridge, because they think in a lot of detail before making a decision, right? So how to get them over the bridge? When you start talking to the finance guy, you talk finance language. When you talk to the engineering guy, you talk engineering language, right? But because of my experience over the time which I have accumulated, you understand what are production problems, you understand what are yield problems, you understand what are costing problems, so you can give them the background. And once they feel their talk or their explanation is not in vain, you will get very soon an appreciation for what you are doing, right? And when you can translate that, then actually you start growing together. So I would say it's kind of engaging, in the detail, nurture their talent, that they speak up, right? Because that was also one of the questions. I think that is also very important. Make them proud, then they will speak out.
Make them proud. Okay, so what did you find worked well to make them proud? Because Japanese are very humble. You know, if you praise Japanese, no, they go straight into humble mode, right? And so they hide their pride in a way, I guess. Of course, they're proud, but they don't want to show I'm so great, I'm so proud. That's not their culture,
right?
So how did you make them feel proud?
Well, basically, it's a very good question. It's a very difficult question, but I found a very easy solution.
Good.
When you are, I think, when you have the luxury of being the general manager, you can set the rules. So what I did is, in our monthly meeting, every time I asked the people to explain what is their function, what do they need, how they see their let us say the improvements they want to bring for their customer or for the way they work or whatever. So we did a poster session, right? So we had 4 guys, So I asked the 4 sales guys, please present what is your customer, in which market he is, what is he producing, what is his success in that market where he is. And then you feel that these people, these Japanese people, they are blossoming up. Right? They are very proud that they have this customer. They are very proud that they made a breakthrough in the project. And of course, they also can talk about the problems which they have. But then you see that you start to have a kind of an interactive session, because then other people in the room will say, when I look at your poster, can you explain me point number 2? I don't get it, right? And then we created a kind of a culture, discussion on equal footing. Nobody is better than the other. You just explain what you are doing in your job, what are your requirements, how you want to improve it. And then I would pick up from every of the poster 1 or 2 points, which I would make sure you drive it forward. Because then their idea is also implemented in the organization, and then it starts working well.
Interesting. That point about having them identify with their customers. I think Japan, I don't know, hard for me to compare in some ways. I'm interested to hear your opinion on this, but I really think Japanese salespeople particularly really identify deeply with their clients, even to the point that often in these interviews I talk to CEOs, sometimes people say, I just wonder who they're working for sometimes,
Right.
They identify so strongly with the client. Are they working for us anymore? They're working for the client. But it's that real appreciation and they're an advocate inside the company for the client, and that trusted partner feeling is very, very strong. I don't know that it's that strong in the West. Perhaps maybe it is. I don't know. But I think Japan sort of takes that to another level, I feel. What do you think?
I think Japanese are always walking the extra mile. They will always walk the extra mile, no matter if it is for the customer externally or if it is in an internal task they get. They will just have the mission to accomplish it. They will never give up. But I think in other cultures, maybe you say, okay, 80% is good enough, 85% is good enough. In Japan, only 100% is good enough.
Exactly.
Everything below.
Minimum standard is
it's
100%.
minimum 100. It's minimum 100, right?
Yeah. It's
so
funny
that's
though, because you know yourself that many foreign companies have very clever CFOs, and they do the numbers, and they work out, if we have a 2 or 3% defect rate, it'll cost us so much to replace those items, but our profitability will be up here. But if we go to no defect, our profitability will come down. So let's go for the 2 or 3% defect rate and have higher profitability. Except in Japan, that's unacceptable, right? It has to be perfect, no defects, 0 defects.
Right.
Forget about the profitability, 0 defects, thank you. And that's a really big difference in business here, isn't it?
That is also, we have cases about warranty, because normally on component, the warranty is 1 or 2 years, in that range. But the customer will never allow that after 10 years your component fails. So despite it's out of warranty, we are still tasked to find out what was the root cause of the defect, right? So that is also the extra mile. In the contract is written after 2 years, you have no right to return the goods. But what we do as a customer service is that we say, we also would like to know why it failed after 10 years. So that's the reason why I think that is the Japanese culture of perfection.
Yeah, and I think that the legalistic approach is not that strong. Now, I know we're talking different industries, different amounts of money. I mean, you start talking hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm sure there's a lot of legalistic involvement. But in the day-to-day, as a typical Western company, you're going to have a contract which specifies warranties 2 years, not 1 day more. That's it. And if it runs out, too bad, we replace it, but you pay. And we're rather legalistic around the contract. But in my experience, if something changes in their world, something changes in their company or their market, forget about the contract. Now we have to change.
Yeah.
It's in the contract. No. This is our situation's changed. We expect you to become flexible and adjust to our needed change. Forget about what's written down. So in a way, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but in some cases I often wonder, in Japan, except for some huge money items, right? Is the contract actually meaningful? Because when they want to change it, they just say to you, well, we need to change. and you're expected to change, regardless of what is written down. So that's a big difference too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Maybe you don't need a contract in Japan because I think the business ethics are anyway very high. Our customers are paying on time. There is no discussion about pricing after order displacement. Now an issue is, for instance, exchange rate. We worked out a process, how do we deal with exchange rate changes, and that is basically automatic implemented. Positively speaking, there is also no discussion. We implemented a process. We said, okay, we have certain boundaries on the exchange rate. When we exceed it, we increase the price. No discussion. Customer pay. In other countries, they would say, no, we first have to discuss. In Japan, they say, no, that's the process. We follow the process. We accept your process and we pay increased prices. Nice. Of course, it also works in the price down, right? When we go out on the other. But I think that is fair, right? We also need to make money. We are not in the charity business. So I think that is good. And of course, sometimes we have negotiation with customers. A very interesting topic is, for instance, how you tie your Japanese obligation in shipment with the new standards of ROSE. So ROSE standard is, for instance, where our material... that stands for you need to confirm the origin of the raw materials which you are using. Yeah, so it should be not produced out of mines where there is child labor, right? Okay. So there is a certain traceability. This traceability is globally standardized. So that means we have an automatic system which is checking where are the raw materials coming from, right? And this system can be also consulted automatically by the customer. The customer has the obligation to check in our system. Of course, we avoid child labor and all this negative aspect of raw material purchasing, right? But we cannot actively report in, for instance, our customers in Japan system, because then it would always have time lags, right? It would be 1 week too late, or we forget to report. So it's basically not fault tolerant. And there we see sometimes, I would call it a gap in understanding, right? Normally the customer has a duty to inform him if we are using the right materials because we have an automatic system, right? And it's globally standardized. And there sometimes you will find disconnect that you have to upload our data in their system, right? That is a little bit the Japanese way of doing things. But that happens.
But you're a very, experienced executive. You've worked in Europe, you worked in Taiwan, you worked in Japan, you've been across different industries, you've got hardware, software, you've got a lot of scope in your career. So I can imagine you bring a lot of insight, a lot of value, a lot of ideas to the business here. However, what about getting ideas from the people here? Because sometimes when we have all that experience, we tend to become a bit dominant. Like our ideas tend to be driven very hard, and we forget that actually maybe they've got ideas too, and maybe some of their ideas are probably better than our ideas. What have you found works well to get ideas from the team, that they're willing, happy, and comfortable to surface some ideas with you? What works well to get that to happen?
Well, that we try to achieve, and we achieved with our poster sessions. At the bottom of the poster, there was always, what do you need to make the business, right? Either you want to do certain processes, you want to accelerate them, you want to do it faster, you need certain products or certain features for certain customers in the Japan market. So because the sales guy was very proud of what he was telling, he was of course excited, and he was also excited in the terms that he would propose, I need this kind of next product, right? So Japan is anyway in power semiconductor a little bit a special market because they have special requirements, or Japan-specific requirement. They are not special; they are just local requirements. And that's what we try to achieve with these poster sessions. That people speak up, speak out, to make sure that their business run well. What I also said to the people is, you have to decide what you can decide. Only when you think you cannot decide, because maybe there are multiple functions involved, then of course you need to consult. But making decisions in favor of the customer.
I mean, it's a bit of an overused word, empowerment, but you sound like you're driving the empowerment down to them. I mean, it's one of those words, that we can't translate very easily. You try and put empowerment into Japanese, it just doesn't quite work, but we get it in English, right? At least in English anyway. But the concept is you can control what you can control, so control it. And that, as opposed to, in a lot of cases, in many companies' cases, they tell me that the Japanese staff are sort of passive, waiting to be told what to do, and they'll do it perfectly. But don't ask me what to do. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it perfectly. But what you're saying is you're actually empowering them to take control of what they can control. And when they get to a certain point where it's beyond their one decision-making capacity and they need other people to cooperate, then you broaden it out. Is that my understanding?
Yeah. So basically what we have done is our products are fitting in different markets. We have six core markets: motor drive, wind turbines, solar, energy storage, UPS backup systems. So basically we have a range of products fitting into these six markets. So basically what I did is I assigned one sales guy for each of the two markets, right? And he has to build his opinion how we want to tackle the market. So I put the obligation of the business plan almost in his court, right? So he has to come out and say, okay, I found 3 customers. That's the product what I need. That is the pricing situation. Here we are with the competition, right? So not saying tomorrow you have to go to this customer. No, he has to decide to which customer to go in that market. So he has to make up his mind, right? And later we will do the benchmarking and see, did you got enough project? And then you can start playing. Maybe you should move the market, or you should focus on other customers.
So initially you've pushed the decision-making down the line to them, let them activate, and then later check that what should be happening is happening. But you let them go first, as opposed to, okay, you have to do this, 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 and this. Now go do it, which is that more hierarchical directive model, isn't it? You're actually doing it the other way around. You're getting them to have the freedom to try, and they may get it wrong, and they don't know. I mean, in a lot of ways in business, you've got to try things to work out if it's going to work or not, but at least give it a go. Right. At least they're trying. And then you realize, well, that's actually not quite the balance, or that's not quite working, and what's missing, and you can work on it together.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. In terms of, I think trust, again, it's one of those words, I think every culture puts a high value on trust. However, I always feel in Japan, somehow Japanese put even more emphasis on trust, than other cultures. I mean, it's equally important everywhere, maybe, but just my gut feeling is somehow the Japanese just elevate that trust thing higher. So when you came here and you started running the business, what did you find worked well to get people to trust you?
I think it's your credibility. I was 4 years before I came here. I was 4 years responsible in Germany to manage the Asia operation. So every country I managed, right? And I think people also understand quite quickly, also Japanese, they understand quite quickly when they talk to you, can this guy help me or not, right? So that means when there were problems, pricing problem, quality problem, logistic problem, just get your hands on everything, everything what they try to sort it out, and maybe you achieve only 80% of the issues which you can solve, because the others are just either unimportant or not relevant or whatever it is, right? I think that is what I meant also with this point on hands-on. When there is dirt, clean up the dirt together with your team, When there are issues, like when before I told the story about the exchange rate, I said, okay, guys, let's make a system, a process. How do we get the customer buy-in on exchange rate? And then we sat around the table, we work out the system, we explained why we do it this way. What is the impact on our profitability? We even explained to the customer what it means when you have an exchange rate of 20% up or down. And after a while, the people or your employees start to see, okay, this all makes sense, this is sound, so we can sell it to the customer, right?
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. leading is easy. Getting people to follow is the hard part. That is a great quote from Yogi Berra. Surprisingly, despite the complexities of leading here in Japan, everyone has to work it out by themselves. Foreign leaders want practical, applicable, expert advice. This is now available for the first time in history. Grab your copy of Japan Leadership Mastery on Amazon today and avoid the mystery, trial and error, especially the errors. So on that point, that's you recognizing an issue, precursor of what's happened with the exchange rate. Like, it's gone crazy for Japan, right? So weak now. But you could have gone the other way. You could have said currency rate. What do we think about that? What are we going to do about that? And then you don't say anything, no directive, and you put it to them to think about. They may not come up with the right solution or a good solution, but I'm just thinking in terms of that empowerment, was there an option also to just not dedicate what we're going to do, but just put the point on the table and then sit back, and maybe nothing happens for a long time, I don't know. Was there also that option for you, or you felt there's a time frame here, we need to activate, I need to drive this? Because you could have gone either way.
Well, we had that issue, and I also asked to come up with a proposal, but I think the working package was maybe not digestible. The people know, okay, yeah, there is this exchange rate issue, we can see it in the internet, but sometimes I think the Japanese have the problem, okay, we identified the problem, but how do we solve it, right? And I think there sometimes you need to cut these working packages small enough so that they can digest. I think the other point is also valid, which was on the timeline, no? Because this was in 2022, and we had an exchange rate from 120 going to 150 within like less than 3 months. So we did not have endless time. But there are other good examples. For instance, what I did is, you want to have free of charge samples for your customers? I said to the sales guys, it's okay, I give you the budget. You sorted out how you do, for which customer, what is the most valuable, which kind of application became successful. I said, you just get the budget.
They came to you on their side saying, oh, and we need to have free samples or something for the client.
Right.
We've got to pay. So their suggestion, and then you support that with money, which is,
right.
I mean, in leadership, money speaks, you know, when you back up what you're saying with dough, people believe, okay, this guy is serious, right?
Right.
He's not mucking around here, right? Okay, that's great. That's great.
Also, the other topic, what I mentioned before about the out of warranty, our headquarter would never pay outside of the 2 years of warranty. But we still have the issue. We need to pick up the good. We need to send it. Somebody need to do the analyze. So normally there are a few €100 cost incurred. So when you do that a few times in a year for every customer, you have a few thousand of euros together. And there I did the same. I said, it's okay, good. We will reserve about 0.5% of our yearly turnover. Yeah, you can decide if you do it by product, if you do it by customer, if you do it by, this is just the budget you got. And finally they worked out, which customers in which cluster, which application would consume this money, right? And when a customer exceeds his budget, then they also have to explain. So they go to the customer first and say, we have a service package for our customers, right? We will do after warranty the component analyze, right? But that's their issue. They came out with the idea. I give them the money. You say, you explain to the customer how it's going to work, right? And I think, that can be done. Yeah, it can be done. And I think we don't need to go into micromanagement. No, I said, it's okay. We will put it in the balance. We make some provisionings and we are done with this issue. No?
Nice. Nice. And so one other thing too is culture. Now, you have a big umbrella over the top, which is company culture, global, right? Then you have in Japan, Japanese culture, right? And then you have Erwin culture. You run this place here the way you want to run it because you're the boss. And your cultural preferences about how this place runs reflects what you like.
Yeah.
But you can't go against corporate culture, you'll get fired. And you can't go against Japanese culture because you'll get nowhere. But still, within that frame, there's a lot of leeway for you to have a certain type of culture here. So what have you found worked well to build the culture you want within those, umbrella frameworks of corporate and Japanese culture?
Good question. I think we had the most difficult transition was actually when we moved from Semikron to Danfoss. Because in Semikron, most of our employees now here already work for Semikron, so they are very used to the Semikron culture. After the acquisition with Danfoss, which has a majority stake in this new company, I need to transfer them to the Danfoss or Semikron Danfoss culture. Yeah. So I need to explain them what has changed. So some corporate function. I think there it's a little bit about transparency, right? That you say, okay, in the past we did it this way, now we have to do it that way because it's a big company and that's their corporate culture. That's just the way they want to do the things. No? When you think about the Japanese culture, of course, there are issues where you need to argue with headquarters. No, you cannot blindly accept everything. One of the issues is, for instance, in Japan, the bonus scheme, summer, winter bonus is, of course, totally different from any other country in the world, right? So there you have to fight your battles and see that it somehow worked out.
So I think it's interesting, in a Western concept, commission or bonus is based on performance. But in Japan's case, summer and winter bonus in the Japanese context is delayed salary payment, that's built into their salary over a 12-month period, but they only get a certain amount of it at a certain period of time. And these big, globs of money turn up twice a year. Not necessarily based on performance in Japan. A lot of companies just every summer, winter, bang, get a certain amount of dough guaranteed. Whereas we come from more of a performance culture, a reward for performance culture. So how has that worked in Japan in the company? Are they just sort of following the Japanese model, or are these bonuses tied to performance? How does it work?
It is tied to performance, but we put like a kind of a minimum limit. So what we are doing, first of all, we clearly separate. You have a salary and you have a bonus. Yeah? So the bonus is really the bonus. And we said we're always going to pay 50% of the bonus, no matter how the performance for the company is. Yeah? The 100% is achieved really on performance. So that means revenue performance, new project performance, profitability.
And is that for their particular personal performance, or is that company total performance?
That is what we did is we developed a matrix by function, because sales, of course, has more to do with sales, whereas technical people or our field application engineers, they are working more towards the technical stuff, not the revenue stuff. But they all have the component. So sometimes we have 40%, 20%. Sometimes it's 20, 40, whatever the package is. Yeah? But everybody would have a performance indicator on revenue, new project, profitability, logistic as, for instance, a performance indicator, how to reduce the transportation cost. But that's maybe only 10% out of the package. The other 40% of the package is revenue again. Yeah.
And it's always surprising for people who don't know Japan to learn that incompetence legally is not a reason to fire anybody in this country. Legally, courts will not allow you to fire someone based on the fact they're incompetent. And the courts will say, well, it's your job to find a function for this person where they can be competent, and you can't fire them for being incompetent. So how have you dealt with performance where it's not at the level that you think it should be? Because you just don't have the option necessarily of firing them for incompetence. So how have you managed that?
Well, I think in 60-70% of the cases, I think Japanese people are very reasonable. So when you can explain that their performance is not fitting the expectation or is misaligned, or then I always try to explain on a eye-to-eye level, you are not a good fit, right? And I think when you don't create emotions in this discussion, also Japanese people understand the point, and they are also prepared to leave, right?
I think that's interesting too. I mean, I've been hiring people here since 1992, when the mobility across companies' jobs was not very high, when the employer had the total power and you're interviewing them. But that's flipped now because of the population decline. And I'm hiring people at the moment. They're interviewing me. You know, I'm not interviewing them anymore. They're interviewing me as to whether they'll come and work for me as opposed to somebody else. So the whole power balance has shifted. So in some ways, I think too, for Japanese who maybe many years ago would have been fearful of not getting another job, well, that fear has gone completely. They know, oh, I'm not a fit, no problem. I'll get a job somewhere else because there's lots of people looking and there's high demand. And there's not a lot of mobility still. They don't change jobs that often. So I think that fear of being unemployed and, you know, living in a cardboard box, I think that's gone now. So maybe in a way that makes it easier to talk to people reasonably, rationally about, well, the fit's not working, the culture doesn't work, or the fit doesn't work. But they know, oh, okay, I can get another job somewhere else. So they're more, I think, agreeable to go.
Right. Yeah. Receptible. I mean, when there are points, it is okay, because when both are unhappy, it also doesn't help, right? Also for Japanese.
And how do you handle mistakes? Because, again, in Western culture, we are rewarded for taking risks. We are rewarded when, you know, we try something new and, you know, it works. And if it doesn't work, we might get fired, depending on what it is. Or we may not get fired. It depends on the company, I guess, the culture there. But what about in Japan? Because the Japanese tend to live within their comfort zone of no mistakes, no errors, no defects, everything done correctly, but within this circle. And I notice when I talk to Japanese about their jobs, they want to know exactly what's in that job description, because they do not want to step 1 centimetre outside that in case it has any impact on their having a perfect score in terms of doing the job correctly. So they try to limit this accountability in the job as much as they can. But that's the reverse of the Western thinking, which is step out, take a risk, try something, experiment. Let's push it. Let's see if we can do something new. So what have we found works well here to have people be creative, take a risk, or you don't worry about taking a risk? Do you keep people within their little framework? How do you think about that?
Well, I think the when you have a clear expectation, let us say a broad band of expectation, how you manage the account, how you get your samples, how you talk to R&D, all this kind of stuff, then basically we have developed a platform which is called key account development. And in the key account development, you define what do you need from all these functions and by when do you need that, like a kind of a mini project plan. So that automatically makes their box bigger. They are not only responsible for the sale and getting the order, they are also responsible for communicating internally, right? And of course, they will make mistakes. But every time we make this box a little bit bigger, right? And then, of course, we tolerate that they make mistakes. And of course, sometimes we will say, well, you have to pay more attention to relationship management. You need to make your appointment with the C-level in one of our big accounts, right? Because when you are very busy, normally your world implodes. When you can make it bigger, right? You start living into this bubble, into your bigger bubble. Mistakes happen. Mistakes happen.
And how do you treat those mistakes? Because, you know, Japanese have been brought up no mistake culture. And in Japanese companies, we have a lot of people in our leadership training programs who tell me, you know, their bosses scolding them in public, yelling at them. One guy told me when he first started work, he'd made some mistake. His boss got so angry. They still had ashtrays in those days, and the boss threw an ashtray at his head, you know, so angry. Well, that's unthinkable today. That's unthinkable today. But in a lot of Japanese companies, there's still a lot of being bawled out in public, you idiot, and scolding people, and you have that culture. So how do you handle mistakes? What's the approach you take? If someone's made a mistake, how would you approach them?
So basically every month I go to our Osaka office and I have one-on-one sessions. So when I pick up a mistake, I don't do it kind of in the public space. I would have a kind of a coaching session, right? And go through the mistake, what you made a suggestion to the employee, you should pay attention to that and that. It did not happen, and later you failed to get a business, or you are on the way to lose the business. So in the one-on-one sessions, people get their personal feedback. Also during Corona, I did that because then it was even much more difficult to manage, right? Because we had no contact
anymore, right?
Right. But I think it's not the bosses blaming the employee. My policy is when somebody makes a mistake, it's actually the boss mistake because you did not explain the expectation.
Right.
So when you set a clear expectation, nobody in the morning comes to the company with the intention to do something wrong.
No.
They all come to the company to do something good.
Correct.
Right? So I think that is also in the way you communicate.
Well, that's you. That's at the level 1. Then you have direct reports, and their people make mistakes. So how do they handle? Are they throwing ashtrays and yelling at people in public, or how are they doing? Because there's one thing for you, with your experience as a Western boss, to think like that, but one level down, their direct report, how do they handle mistakes, and how do you deal with the fact that, as you say, the boss has accountability? If a subordinate made a mistake, they are accountable in your idea there for that mistake. So how do you handle them, and how do they handle the people they have reporting to them?
I think it is a role model. No? I think in the 30 years where I was always working with Japanese, with Taiwanese, with Asian, you fundamentally have the language problem, right? So that means every sentence you say, there is a potential that they maybe misinterpreted, right? So basically what I made as I would call it as my branding. When I say something, I always have a picture. So every time when we are sitting in a meeting, I always prepare the meeting. There is a clear agenda. There is data. There are numbers. There are statements from customer. So it's very easy to get the people on your side, because what you write, you commit, because you wrote it. Later somebody takes the presentation and said, that's what you say to us, right? And that role model is also used by my people. They will actually say, okay, give me that one pager from
what you're doing.
Right.
Okay.
So I think the role model is good. Of course, the issue which you have, if they can close the loop then in the same fashion, because you are a boss, so you have another level of authority and explaining. So maybe the acceptance comes earlier than when they would do it to their people. Of course, we have a small organization. We have only 15 people, so we don't have a lot of intermediate layers. No? But I think that is important. No?
When if someone called you up and said, hey, Erwin, I've been given the Japan job. I'm coming to Japan to run our organization, but I don't know anything about Japan. I don't speak Japanese. You've been there forever. How can I be an effective leader? What would be some key advice you'd give them?
I think, first of all, this leading by example. Leading by example, I think this is really the key. When there are troubles, stand up, go with your team. Don't step away from problems. I think this is the fatal. When you leave your team alone and you not solve the issues, I think also as an image to the customer, right? Because when you always send the soldiers, but you never see the general, then it will take longer. It's time consuming. When do you cut a knot, right? I think this is very important. Also, particularly in the case of our company, stick to your values. We are an European company. Don't try to emulate a Japanese company, because you will never do it. You also can never emulate a Chinese company when you are a German company, right? So stand up for your values. Don't compromise. Our people here, they go home at 6 o'clock. They don't get any benefit when they go home at 10 o'clock, right? So I said, these are our values. We make you work efficiently, effectively. We have processes. We educate you. We train you. We do everything what we need to do. So don't try to reformat this company as a Japanese company, because you will need endless resource anyway. You cannot pay it. That would be my suggestion. I don't think language is the issue in the first stage. I think the logic is the most important, not the language, the logic.
The logic of what? The Japanese logic or the Western logic? Which logic are you talking? Because I think the Japanese logic and the Western logic are often quite different logics,
Maybe Germans are closer to the Japanese than any other kind of logic. I can imagine when you would work with a French headquarter or with an Italian. I think German people are pragmatic people. They can make logic decisions, and I think Japanese are also in the same fashion,
vein.
right? Of course, there's always the context, and you need to understand the temperature in the hospital and all these kind of things. But by the end, in the decision making, it's plain vanilla, right? It's not so. There's no political agenda. There is not this kind of thing. So I think it works out. Right? I think it's straightforward. Also in our world, no? I mean, in our component world, it's maybe easier than when you are dealing with software implementation or IT teams. Then, of course, there will be much more colors which you have to discover.
What about language? Should they learn Japanese?
I think they should learn Japanese, but never expect as a non-Japanese that you will be fully integrated. So there will be always a kind of a hidden culture in your company, if you like it or not. Yeah. So don't try to get to the 100%. I don't think that's what it is.
Linguistic genius, I think, to get to 100% Japanese. I mean, it's so difficult as a language, and I've been here a long time, but still struggling with the language, in many ways. How about your definition of leadership? How would you define leadership, Erwin?
Leadership is also about credibility. In that sense, don't come with kind of slogans which later you cannot fulfill. Okay. So don't go too far out and nobody will understand your language or what you want to do, because Japanese people are down to earth, right? So that means when you write something, when you say something, think twice about it. So that it is digestible, right? Don't start making a story what's going to happen in 5 years, because you will pick up nobody, because Japanese are always in the details. They like details. They like to have it packaged that they can digest it, right? And I think that as a leader, you also have to say, what are my stages? How do I think about the thing? Rather than just having slogans, because it will not work out and it will discredit you. Because you will get a lot of questions, right? So I think that is important. Stand up to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Erwin. That was great. So please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.